Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of International Careers Week. We are so excited that you were able to join us. This is our last program of International Careers Week, so we are really excited Melissa will be joining us. This entire week has been made possible by the Blank Family Foundation, Longview Foundation, Washington Foundation, and the High Stakes Foundation. Over to you, Melissa. Tell us everything about your career.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cristina Marquez. I am a marine scientist, but I also wear a couple of other different hats as well. I'm a children's book author, I'm a TV host, I'm a podcast host, I'm an environmental writer, I'm a mom. So lots of different hats as well. And you may be wondering, all right, Melissa, how did you get there? How did you start doing that? Well, when I was really young, I was born on an island and I was absolutely infatuated with everything that was on that island, but especially the ocean. I mean, islands are surrounded by the ocean. And so some of my very first memories are of me just playing around the tide pools, poking my head around, being like, what's this? What's that? And it was really those tide pools that got me interested in marine life because it was like, oh, if you have these tiny little worlds just right here in these tiny little pools, what's in that really, really big pool that's called the ocean? And so that's what really kind of got me started into marine biology was the tide pools that led me then to the big pool, aka the ocean. And then you may be wondering, all right, Melissa, well, how did you go from tide pools to sharks? So I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Mexican, and I used to live in Mexico when I was little. And we eventually then moved over to the United States. And when we moved to the United States, it was in the middle of summer. My parents, because I was young, didn't want me touching any boxes or anything like that, or accidentally breaking anything as we were moving. So they kind of plopped me in front of the TV and they were like, all right, it's a TV. It's got many channels. Go ahead and watch what you want. It's in English, by the way. And this was new to me because I spoke Spanish. We hadn't really used the TV before, so I was super, super excited. Mom taught me how to use the remote. I'm flicking through the channels, and suddenly I see this shark breaching. And what breaching means is a shark jumping out of the water. It was a great white shark jumping out of the water. And that just hooked it for me. I was like, that's what I want to study. I have no idea what it is, but that's what I want to study. And since then, have gone down every single path to be able to study not just great white sharks, but all sharks from all over the world. So, yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell in regards to kind of what started my love for marine biology and kind of like where I am with it today. My day to day looks a little bit different right now, mostly because as a marine scientist and also all the other hats that I'm wearing, no 2 days look alike. So there are some days where I'm out in the field doing research, out on a boat, tagging sharks, making chum, which is like that mushed up fish smoothie that you can kind of give sharks to bring them closer so we could tag them or take photos of them or do whatever it is that we need to do with them. Some days I'm at home. I'm writing my children's books about wildlife, mostly sharks, of course, but other marine life as well. Some days I'm dealing with my newborn baby, and being with him has given me a lot of inspiration for new books and new writing as well. I just took him to the aquarium actually for the first time yesterday, and it was really cool getting to see him get super excited about like the stingrays and the sharks as well. And that's given me a few ideas for a couple of books. Um, some days I'm up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning doing interviews with people for podcasts around the world because I'm based out of Australia. So it's a tricky kind of time zone to deal with. And other times I'm in front of a TV telling people about what's happening in our world, about sharks, about nature, about the environment. So yeah, no 2 days are alike, which I like. But yeah, so that's basically me in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I know that there's quite probably a few of them.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot more schools that have hopped on, but I think I'm going to start us off. Can you tell us what are the most interesting facts that most people don't know about sharks that you think we should know about sharks?
Yeah, I think probably one of the most interesting facts is the fact there's over 500 different species of sharks. So when people think shark, they're just like, all right, great white, tiger, bull, lemon, and they're like, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? There's like 10, and it's like, no, there's over 500 of them. And on average, scientists are discovering a new species about every 2 weeks. So there's tons of different species out there, which means they are in different parts of the ocean. They take up different parts of the habitat and ecosystems there. And so they're important in their own sorts of way. So I think that's probably the coolest fact is that there's so many different sharks that are important to our ocean so many different ways because, they are often top predators of whatever habitat or whatever ecosystem that they're in. They're in charge of making sure that all the dead, the weak, the dying fish are weeded out by eating them. They make sure that they keep the balance in the oceanic food chain. So making sure that the fish underneath them aren't getting too many and they're not eating too many plants or they're not eating too many of one certain fish that can kind of tip the balance on everything. So they're quite important species. And a lot of people kind of can't see past the fact that they can be a little bit scary looking. But even though they're a little bit scary looking, they are very, very important to our oceans.
All right, we're getting some questions in from Reed Point. Wikipedia says you were once attacked by a crocodile during a taping of Shark Week. Is this true? And can you give us details?
Yeah, so for my very first Shark Week show, Cuba's Secret Shark Lair, we were in Cuba looking for hammerhead sharks. And hammerhead sharks in Cuba share an environment with crocodiles. And hammerhead sharks are known, they're called diurnal. And what diurnal means is they hunt during dusk and dawn. And I know that hammerhead sharks tend to go for the mangroves because that's where their favorite food stingrays are. And so we were looking for a specific hammerhead shark, and we were like, all right, let's try the mangrove area during nighttime, see if they pop up there. What we didn't realize was also that the crocodiles were going to hang out in that area. And I'm not going to give away too much. You can go ahead and watch the show. It is on Discovery's apps, and every time Shark Week comes, I think the show re-airs a couple of times because I always get people asking, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "This happened in 2018. I'm good." But yes, I was bitten and dragged by an American crocodile. It was 10 feet long. It grabbed my left leg and dragged me backwards in the water while we were scuba diving. I'm all right. Still have my leg. Have some cool scars where you can kind of see like the jaw marks of the crocodile's teeth. But it let me go once it realized that I wasn't food. And afterwards, Tito is the name of the crocodile, did come visit me. And I don't want to put any human emotions on the animal, but it was a kind of special moment where I got to see it and it got to see me. And I was like, I don't blame you for what happened. You were a crocodile, you were doing what you do, totally fine. And he kind of left and nobody saw him for a little bit. So yeah, no, Tito's still around in Cuba having a good time, and I'm still around the world having a good time too.
Would you say that was one of your scariest moments when you were in the field, or was there a moment you think was a little more frightening?
No, that's probably been one of my scariest, just because, especially with crocodiles, they do something that they hold on to something and they do what's called a death roll. And so they'll turn their whole entire body to basically kill what it is that they're trying to eat. Usually dislocates bones and tears at muscle and whatnot. And so once I knew it had my leg in its mouth, I was like, oh, if it does the death roll, we were quite far away from civilization. And I was like, I don't know if I would make it because it depends how much I would bleed out or anything like that. So yeah, that was definitely scary. But also back then, not as much now, but back then I used to be really afraid of the dark. And so it was fine scuba diving at night, but for some reason, just the concept of night or being in pitch black darkness, I didn't like it. And so when it grabbed me and pulled me away from the studio lights, so the lights that we had in the water, and it was dragging me into the darkness, and I didn't like that. So that was actually probably scarier for me than the bite itself.
What was one of the most memorable things you have experienced in the field?
It's so hard. There's so many really good ones. I've got two of them, and actually both of them you can see them on TV. So one of them is Our Planet Earth that was hosted by Will Smith back in 2019. And I got to travel back home to Puerto Rico and show you guys Mosquito Bay. Now, Mosquito Bay is on the island of Vieques, which is one of the islands that make up Puerto Rico. And what's really unique about Mosquito Bay is not the mosquitoes, it's the fact that when the sun goes down, the bay actually lights up. It's bioluminescent. So there's these chemical interactions that happen that make the water glow blue or greenish. And so we were there filming, trying to see if we could find different animals in that bay at night. And I was really lucky that I got to go on a glass canoe and show you guys all of the different animals, specifically show you a nurse shark that came in. And it was really cool because it almost looked like you dumped a glow stick into the ocean and it covered like all the animals. And so you suddenly have this like pitch black ocean and you see all of these glowing animals just almost it looks like they're flying through the water. So that was a really special moment. And you can see that, I believe, on Netflix if it's still up. And then most recently, last year, the series Ocean Explorers that I was on, we got to go up into the Arctic, and I got to go into a submarine and got to see a Greenland shark for the first time in its own environment. Nobody's seen them in their own environment via sub before, let alone feeding from a sub. And so we got to see that, which was really cool. And the amazing thing about Greenland sharks is they are the oldest living vertebrate. So they're the oldest living animal with a backbone so far in our planet. It's estimated that they can live to over 500 years old. So it was really cool getting to see an animal that we were guessing was about 200 years old right in front of us and just seeing how it interacted with its environment.
How long have you been studying sharks?
I went to college to study sharks when I was 17, just about to turn 18, and I've been studying sharks since then. I am in the process of getting my PhD so I can be a doctor, but not the kind in a hospital, the kind that studies fish and other animals. But I did take a little bit of a break just because I got pregnant and had my baby and have been focusing on him for the last, 7 months that he's been around.
What is the most interesting shark in your opinion?
Hmm. Oh, that's tough. I'm a little bit biased. I will say the tiger shark. And the reason why I say that is because they are known as the trash cans of the sea because they're quite opportunistic feeders. And so, yes, they have a set diet that they prefer, fish, turtles, seabirds, other sharks sometimes, but they're also very opportunistic that they're not like if you put something in front of them, they're probably going to take a little bit of a bite out of it. When we've pumped their stomachs before to figure out what's in their stomachs or they've thrown up in front of us, some weird stuff has come out, like license plates, tires, parts of a suit of armor, a porcupine, TNT, like the explosive, chicken wire, like just weird stuff comes out of these guys. So yeah, I think they're probably one of the most interesting ones because you never know what you're going to get when you interact with them.
Some deterioration of coral reefs affect sharks.
So coral reefs, they are one of the habitats that hosts the most marine life in our oceans. And so, of course, you've got a lot of sharks that are in these coral reefs. Basically, as they degrade, as their health deteriorates, you are going to start seeing sharks either move on to other places or they're really just going to start to struggle. So yeah, coral reefs and sharks are quite linked. And so their health really suffers either way. Even if a reef is quite healthy, it doesn't have any coral bleaching or anything like that, but there's no sharks. The coral reef actually still suffers because it doesn't have that animal balancing that food web, which could lead to the coral reef suffering as well.
What kind of degree or education do you need in your type of work?
Good question. We have kind of a few different tiers of what degrees you need. It really just depends on what you want to do. If you want to do your own research, like I one day want to do and I'm trying to do, you need to have a doctorate degree. So you need to have that PhD. Whereas if you want to be a part of an organization, help other people with their work, If you want to go more into marine conservation, not so much research, you don't need the PhD. It's sometimes good to have, but oftentimes you just need the master's. Unfortunately, most jobs need at least a bachelor degree, so you need those 4 to 5 years in the beginning, just so you have that basic knowledge of marine biology, zoology, whatever it is that you kind of get into. So at a minimum, most marine opportunities, you need a bachelor's degree.
Do the tags that you put on the sharks track them? If so, how do you use the data that is collected?
That's a great question. So yes, some of the tags that I've used in the past do track sharks, kind of like a GPS. So every single time their fin pops up out of the water, it can send signals to satellites up in the air and lets us kind of triangulate where it is in the ocean. Again, very similar to GPS, so lets us know kind of where it's going. Tags usually end up having a bit more technology on them as well. So it lets us usually know how deep the shark is going, what kind of light levels they're at. So it lets us know if they're in a deep part of the ocean, if they're in a darker part of the ocean where the light isn't as able to reach. Sometimes lets us know temperature, sometimes lets us know speed. Yeah, different things or different measurements can be taken from the tags. It just depends on how expensive you want your tag to be because they can be quite expensive. And then depending on what data it is that you're collecting, then depends what you do with the data. So some people, like the company OSearch, they put it up on public platforms so you can see and actually everybody can track where the sharks are going. Some people, they keep that information to themselves, especially if it's an endangered species of shark, just so they can kind of figure out, all right, where is the shark mostly going? Is it in an area that we can protect and use this as evidence of, hey, these species of sharks that are endangered frequent this area. We should protect this area to protect these sharks. Yeah, it just really depends on what sort of research you do, what you do with your data.
Are there ethical concerns regarding chumming to attract sharks?
Oh yeah, definitely. So there's actually quite a lot of rules in like around chumming. So if there are people nearby, can't chum. If there are beaches nearby or colonies of certain animals nearby, usually you can't chum. Yeah, there's quite a few different rules in regards to chumming and what you do. But more often than not, you do need to chum in order to attract these animals. A lot of people are like, oh, why do you need to? It's sharks are big, yes, but the ocean is bigger. And so trying to find sharks in order to tag them or do research, it almost is like looking like for a needle in a haystack. So you kind of need to even the odds and bring the needles to you by holding out a magnet of sorts. But there is a lot of rules around chumming that you have to follow in order to make it as safe as possible for people.
What ocean has the most common occurrence of sharks?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just because of the sheer size of it, it would make sense that it'd be the Pacific Ocean because it is our biggest ocean. So I would say probably the Pacific Ocean has probably not just the most sharks, but probably the most animals as well.
What is the best place you've gone to visit or work in to study marine biology?
Probably the Arctic is the most special because it was just the most unique, and I never expected myself to go to the Arctic. So I learned a lot because the scientists that I got to work with on there, they just taught me so much about how they carry out their shark science work, and what that looks like in such harsh environments.
What was the biggest shark that you've ever seen?
Whale sharks. They're the biggest fish in our ocean currently, and they are the biggest sharks in our oceans currently. So yeah, whale sharks.
Have you ever been in the water with a shark and it started at you?
No, no.
What shows, channels, or media can we find you on?
Yeah, so you can find me on past Shark Week shows, so on the Discovery Channel. Cuba's Secret Shark Lair and Guadalupe Kill Zone were the two that I was on. For Nat Geo Shark Fest, I believe that is on the Disney Plus app, under the little like Nat Geo icons. Shark Attack 360 and When Sharks Attack, I think is what it was called, were the shows that I've been on, and I've been on those since 2019 up until 2023 or 2024 actually. Um, Ocean Explorers is the most recent show I've been on, and uh, Planet Earth or Planet Rock, or Great Rock, one of those that has Will Smith. That's also a TV show that I've been on. In regards to like social media and stuff like that, you can find me on X, on Blue Sky, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I've got a channel, but I haven't put anything on there just yet. I really need to start on there. So yeah.
What was your most recent venture on the water and where?
Adventure. It was last year around this time, and we were filming for Shark Attack 360, and we were trying to see, we were doing an experiment here in Australia to see at what depth sharks were targeting decoys that we had, so fake seals, essentially. We were trying to figure out, were they trying to attack them just at the surface, or in the middle of kind of like the water from like the surface to the ocean floor, or the ocean floor. That was the last time I was able to get into the water, just because when you are pregnant, you can't scuba dive. And so I wasn't scuba diving for a while. And then obviously I had my little son. So I haven't been in the water back since. But I'm hoping this year I'll get to go back pretty soon, especially since he's starting daycare soon.
I have toddlers as well, so I understand. What
Oh, yes.
inspired you to write children's books?
Good question. So I am also a science communicator, which means I do this sort of stuff. I tell people what my job is, and explain all the science behind this shark science world and make it easy to digest or easy to understand for everybody else. Usually when scientists publish something, it's filled with really big words that people don't often understand. Sometimes I don't even understand it. And people have a really hard time figuring out how that work impacts them. And so my job is to kind of translate that work into that heavy, we call it jargon, those big words. So heavy jargon filled papers, and translate it into a way that shows why sharks matter to not just people who live on the coast, but worldwide as well. And so for me, writing kids' books was just another way of doing that, of doing science communication, of making sure, hey, I've got all of this knowledge, I have access to all of this information from so many amazing different scientists, but so many people don't know what they're doing because they don't understand it. So how can I take all of that knowledge and make it so people can have access to it, but also can understand it, but in a fun way? And that's when the children's books came into play.
If we're going to go to an aquarium to see sharks, what aquariums would you recommend we visit?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say Georgia Aquarium is probably one of my favorites. It has quite a few whale sharks, and their research into not just the whale sharks in captivity, but worldwide, and also taking care of the whale sharks is top notch. It's a huge aquarium as well, so you will not get bored in there. That's definitely probably one of my favorites. If you have any of the sea life aquariums, that's like a chain of aquariums around the world. They have one actually here in Australia, quite a few of them. The sea life aquariums are really cool to go to, and they've got quite a few different shark exhibits in there as well. Um, and there's one in Japan that also has whale sharks, which is really cool. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's one in Japan. It's quite famous for it. If you Google whale shark Japan aquarium, it'll pop up. South Africa as well, Two Oceans Aquarium, if you ever get the chance to go there, probably one of the best aquariums in there. And of course, Monterey Bay Aquarium in California. amazing aquarium if you get the chance to go to Cali. Absolutely incredible. So you've got one on either coast.
What would you say is the goal of your work?
I think the goal of my work is to make people excited about nature, um, to respect nature. I'm not asking everybody to love sharks as much as I do because I know they can be quite scary. And I don't want to invalidate anybody's fear for them. I would like to educate people about the fear that they have around sharks, show them, there's a couple of myths about sharks that a lot of people focus on that aren't true. But yeah, I want people to have a healthy respect for nature and a healthy appreciation for nature and just get excited about what we have there. We have such a unique planet in our entire ecosystem. To our knowledge, it's the only one that can hold life how our planet currently holds life. And how is that not exciting? How is that not something that makes you kind of get up every day and be like, oh, what cool thing about nature can I learn about today? So that's my job, is to get you excited about nature, especially our oceans.
So some of our students here have done quite a bit of research on you here. One of your TED Talks, you talked about sharks learning to reproduce asexually. What caused this?
Good question. So funnily enough, this actually made the news recently because there was an aquarium in the States that had a female shark that just gave birth, but the female hadn't seen any males in a really long time. And that's part of why this kind of reproduction without males or self-reproduction happens. So there's two ways that females can kind of self-reproduce. One is they literally copy their own DNA. So the pups, the baby sharks that they give birth to, is an actual DNA copy of the mom. The other way is that sometimes after male sharks and female sharks have sex, the female shark will hold on to the sperm of the male shark for a really long time. And if she hasn't seen any other males for a while, she'll be like, oh, really need to have some babies. No other males. Oh, wait, I've got some sperm stored away. I've got a little bit to help make some babies. I'll use that. And that's sometimes what ends up happening as well. So it's just an evolutionary mechanism that sharks use in order to continue reproducing without males around.
What is your favorite shark movie? And is it Jaws?
I was gonna say Jaws is up there just because it is a classic. But I have to go with Sharknado, the first one.
Hmm.
Just because it was such an outlandish idea. But also, if you look at the Sharknado movies, even though they're completely false, they have a lot of shark diversity in the tornado itself. And I quite liked that because usually you don't see like frilled sharks and goblin sharks and a few other of the other sharks that you have in the Sharknado movies, in shark movies. So it was really cool, like getting to see the tornado and being like, oh wait, that's that shark, that's that shark, that's that shark. Oh, they did quite good with filming of the sharks. And they also, for some parts of it, filmed it in Orlando, Florida, and in Universal Studios. And so me and my friends, we went over and like watched them film a few different parts of it. So that was quite cool.
What did you do in Shark Tank?
In Shark Tank. What did I do in Shark Tank? You mean the show with like where you present an idea and it has like the three people that like buzz your idea and whatnot. I haven't been on that one.
We need more details.
Yeah, because I haven't been on Shark Tank. I've been in Shark Tanks, but I haven't been on the show Shark Tank.
All right. Go to a different one while we figure that one out. What does your work as a marine biologist entail when you aren't conducting field work?
It's a great question. So obviously when you go out to the field, you collected a lot of data. What happens when you come back off of the field, is you have to analyze that data. You have to run statistical tests on that data. You have to write up your results and what could those results possibly mean. So there is a lot of time spent on a computer, writing, doing math analysis and whatnot. So that's mostly what we end up doing when we're not in the field, is taking all that data that we got from the field and writing about it.
Okay, so we have clarification. It was not Shark Tank, it is Shark Week. What did you do during Shark Week?
Okay, so there's two different Shark Week shows. One of them we went to Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico. That one we were working with great white sharks there. And what did we do? It was a while ago. I think we were looking to see how clear the water was and the different ways that the great white sharks were trying to attack like decoys and other animals. Um, Fun fact, you actually can't go to Guadalupe Island anymore to film TV shows or actually even do research. They've completely shut it down to give the area kind of a bit of a rest, but also create a bit of a haven for the great white sharks there. So yeah, I think that's what we did. It was a really long time ago now, and I've done a few more things with sharks now since then. So I kind of forget what we've done there. For Cuba's Secret Shark Lair, that's when we were looking for a specific hammerhead shark, quite a big hammerhead shark, just to kind of figure out why there were big hammerhead sharks in this area of Cuba. So yeah, that's what we were doing for those two areas, looking at how sharks attack and looking for specific sharks.
How many places have you traveled as a result of your job? How much does your job require you to travel?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part of the question first, or the second part of the question first. So it really depends the job that you have. Some parts, like some jobs, you don't have to travel. As a marine biologist, you can kind of stay where it is that you are. Some actually marine biologists don't even actually go out into the ocean. Their bits are in charge of just handling the data or just writing up or anything like that. So it really depends on how much you want to actually get out into the ocean, how much you want to travel. Usually up to you, and what path you want to go on. For me, I've been really lucky that my job has gotten me to all seven continents around the world. And I've been able to travel to some really cool places, like the Arctic, Antarctica, Belize, South Africa, around here in Australia, the Azores. So yeah, I've gotten to travel quite a bit thanks to my job.
Within marine biology, do you have to choose one species to study?
No, so you can be a generalist, you can just do marine biology in general, or you could be a specialist and kind of just focus on one animal. It really is up to you.
What is your favorite type of shark?
Tiger sharks.
Um, let's see. Anyone have any other questions? Just keep putting them in there. Okay, so I had one that I need to go back to. I'm so sorry. I need to find it. Oh, wait, we have another one. Ah. What do we know about sharks' ability to sense electromagnetic fields?
So it really depends on the species of shark, and that's kind of the answer for most things in science. It depends on the animal. Um, we know that all sharks, and actually their cousins, the rays and the chimeras, have the ability to sense electrical fields. Um, but how strong that is, what they use it for outside of possibly navigating the ocean floor and looking for prey, um, is something that we're still studying. And we do kind of use that knowledge that we have of their sensitivity to these electromagnetic fields um, to use shark repellents, so personal shark deterrents, where you kind of here in Australia they're actually quite popular. Uh, Usually you attach them to like your ankle, and they have this little like electric rod or rod that comes off of them, and it gives off these electrical pulses. Um, some of them have been scientifically tested and show that they do reduce shark bites or the ability for a shark to kind of like come near you by quite a lot. But it depends on the species, and then it depends also sometimes on the individual, because you can have, three great white sharks say, yeah, no, I'm not going near this person, and this one great white shark be like, oh, actually, I'm a bit interested. Let me go check it out. So like everything in science, there's not one set answer, and there's not one set solution either. But yeah, we're studying more and more about these electrical receptors, sharks' ability to deal with electricity in the world, and in our earth, and figure out how we can use it to our advantage to be able to protect ourselves better.
What is your PhD research on?
So my PhD research looks at our relationship with sharks and how that's changed over time. So I look at folklore of sharks and what folklore around the sharks around the world looks like, if there's any common themes or storylines from there, what we can learn about those. I look at how sharks are portrayed in the media and how that differs from other animals as well. Um, and yeah, just our relationship with sharks and how that's changed over the decades that we've been dealing with them.
Sharks actually smell blood from miles away.
Yes and no. It's not miles away. It can be quite a considerable distance, but it's not miles away. But more often than not, they usually smell other chemical cues as well, not just blood to entice them to go over to a specific area. You know, they use all of their senses, everything from sight, smell, hearing. You know, they're hearing fish struggle before they smell the blood or they see the fish struggling or anything like that. So they use all of their senses, and all of their senses, again, depending on the shark, um, are at varying different heights. So, you know, some sharks rely more on eyesight, some sharks rely more on sense of smell. Some sharks rely more on those ampullae of Lorenzini, so those electrical sensors. Yeah, it's really cool getting to see the different ways that sharks hunt.
Okay, do you go in a tank with a shark or do they stay out and you're in a cage?
It's a great question. So it depends the species. If I'm focusing on a species that's in an aquarium or anything like that, then more often than not, we kind of try to leave them by itself. Or if I have to go into the tank, I will. But that's very rare. More often than not, we're out in the wild, and we're in a cage. And especially when we're dealing with great white sharks, we're always in a cage when we're dealing with great white sharks. Other shark species depends if you're in a cage or not. More often than not, you're not in a cage.
All right. How do you protect the environment where sharks live? What measures are taken to help better those environments?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? You just got a
Yes.
little bit garbled there.
How do you protect the environment where sharks live? What measures are taken to help better those environments?
That's a really great question. Climate change is definitely one of the threats that sharks face, because it's obviously changing the habitats that they live. Um, Everything from corals bleaching to the water getting warmer, the water actually getting more acidic, pollution, and what we call habitat destruction. So either intentionally, you know, people throwing dynamite into coral reefs, the dynamite exploding and killing obviously the coral reef, but also killing the animals that are there. And that's a fishing method a lot of people use. Some people will intentionally or unintentionally destroy habitats by, say, you know, creating homes on the coast, picks up a lot of pollution, picks up a lot of sand that they then throw off the shore, and that can smother a lot of those habitats that sharks are in. And so at this age, what you guys can kind of do to protect sharks is twofold. One is try not to pollute. So if you see trash in the beach, pick some of it up. What I usually do with my family is I usually have like a little plastic baggie that I bring along with me, and we take 5 minutes before we leave the beach. We just walk up and down the beach, and we're collecting trash, either cigarette butts, pieces of plastic, plastic bottles, anything like that. We put it in the bag, and then as we leave, we toss it in the trash. Um, if you use plastic, recycle it. Make sure that you are recycling it properly, because often a lot of times you get a lot of plastic that goes out into the ocean and kills a lot of these habitats because it just gets overrun by this pollution. Um, but the biggest threat for sharks isn't so much the loss of their habitat, it's actually overfishing. So what we've noticed in the research is we are fishing too much, either specifically for sharks or for the animals that sharks eat, which is then reducing the number of sharks that are in the oceans. And so if you eat seafood, you want to make sure, especially in the States, there's usually this little blue tick. It's called an MSC blue tick, and it lets you know that your fish has been sustained or sustainably fished. And that's what you're looking for when it comes to seafood. You want to have that blue tick. You want to make sure that your seafood has been sustainably fished for, because that is the best way that you can help sharks out, is by making sure that what seafood is being taken out of the ocean is being sustainably taken out, which leads to there actually being fish in the ocean for these animals to eat.
Do sharks sleep?
Not the way that we do. So it's not like, they close both of their eyes, tuck themselves into bed or anything like that. We're still trying to figure out the mechanisms of how sharks sleep. It has been kind of noted that for some of them, it might be similar to how dolphins sleep, where they like shut half of their brain off and the other half goes into autopilot, and then they kind of switch between some of them. We have noticed some sharks have the ability to, so here's one of the myths about sharks, is that they constantly need to swim in order to breathe. Some sharks, yes, like great white sharks, that definitely applies. But for some species, they can actually lie on the ocean floor and rest. And how they breathe is they'll actually use their cheek muscles to force water to go through their gills. So you'll see them kind of going like this. We call that buccal pumping, because buccal is the cheek muscles. And so that's how they breathe instead. And that's how they can kind of rest, is by lying on that ocean floor and pumping that ocean water through their gills manually.
How have different cultures interpreted the folklore and power that sharks represent?
That's a great question. The really interesting thing that I've kind of noticed in my research is that quite a lot of them have the same exact storyline. So sharks fall into one of three categories. They're either evil gods, or evil entities, bad entities, if you will. They're good entities, or good gods, or they're kind of in the middle, in that they're not so much neutral, but they're kind of sometimes jokesters or tricksters. Um, the folklore that I've kind of seen around the world shows everything from them being blamed for sinkholes in the Caribbean and drowning swimmers in the Caribbean, to being protectors in Oceania. So Oceania means like Hawaii, or California, Hawaii, Australia, the islands in the Pacific and whatnot. They see them as protectors, as guides. Here in Australia, they're actually seen as entities that have carved out the land itself into the way that we see the land today. So yeah, different ways of seeing different sharks. It just kind of depends on the culture, how they see them. But more often than not, every culture has good interpretations, good, bad interpretations, and neutral interpretations of sharks in folklore.
We did have a question that I passed off is, do you have a website? Yes, she does. It's how I got a hold of her to do this program, which she was so nice enough to do with us today. You just can type in her name and it will pop up. And I just have one final question for you, Melissa. These students that are on today are just now starting to think about what career they're going to go into. What advice do you have for Montana students?
If you are kind of sitting there right now wondering, what in the world I'm going to do, follow your passions. What excites you? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, there's a lot of things that excite me, or I'm not 100% sure. You're kind of now at an age that you can take the time to figure out what it is that you are drawn to. A lot of times people told me, Melissa, being a shark scientist, it isn't something that a girl can do, or it's too far-fetched of a job for you to be able to do. And yeah, it took a lot of hard work. It took a little bit of luck as well to get where I am, but it was mostly my passion that got me here. Me saying, no, this is something that I'm really passionate about. This is something that really excites me. I'm really lucky that I get to wake up every single day and love my job every single day. All different aspects of it, the research, the chumming and smelling like fish, the getting to travel around the world, the writing, the talking to people in parliament about the importance of sharks in our oceans. All of that I absolutely adore. And so if you find something that you are passionate about, hold on to it. And it's okay if the career path you go down isn't exactly what you pictured it. You know, if you had asked me when I was 17 starting out, if what my career looks like now is what I thought it would be, I would tell you absolutely no. It's okay for dreams to change. It's okay for interests to change. You know, if you're starting to go kind of down a path and be like, oh, I thought this is what I liked, but actually not really, it's totally fine to change your mind, and do something different as well. So just be open, follow your passions, and good luck. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do anything, because you guys are smart. I believe in you. So good luck, have fun, and hopefully some of you guys end up being marine scientists and I can see you out in the field.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and participate during our International Careers Week. To all of the students in Montana, thank you for participating in our third annual International Careers Week, and we hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.